Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 2 is truly something else, but even a victory comes with a rough journey. Hello and welcome, Cinema, where we focus on a film. I'm Josh, this is Simply Cinema. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of Cobra Kai Season 6 so far that we've gotten. Make sure to like this video if you enjoy it, subscribe if you haven't already to join in the film culture community where we talk about a lot of cinema as a whole. And getting right into the synopsis. Saikai Taikai is on and Miyagi-Do must face on new opponents as well as old enemies, facing on some new consequences that are bigger in their actions and taking on this whole new tournament with new mysteries they have to uncover as old enemies appear once more. And taking it right into the positive, there's just a lot of fun action that if you're a fan of the show, it's an addicting season that really continues on wanting me to get me into the next episode again and again, get me into the following thing. It's great with its cliffhangers, leaving you in with a great note to end off each episode with, intriguing you to follow up with the next. What's always going to happen to these characters, and the characters feel consistent to how we're bringing them on before, bringing them into the nature of the fights that are really explosive. They might not be perfect in their choreography, but still making it feel fun and being able to get into the action, making it feel like there's higher stakes because of these new opponents. It's the world tournament against the karate champions, and so how we're pulling in all of these best teams, you're meeting some new enemies, being able to establish new characters in a quick 5-episode run that really gets you into the stakes. Yes, there's characters that you're not understanding the motives between every character that is present. There are certain teams that mean less to the story than others, but that's all that you may expect. You can't bring in all of these characters, understand each and every one of them, while still carrying on the weight of the characters that we know from Miyagi-Do and Cobra Kai. Every one we know before, but still being able to follow along the lines of Cobra Kai, just being able to understand their dojo, certain things going along. Now that we know Tori is a part of Cobra Kai, brings up the intensity, brings up some divided lines that makes it complicated in some sets of the imagination, but still drives up the stakes in the sense of not knowing how it will ultimately pay off. There's a sense of mystery of Daniel trying to figure out what is all going on with Mr. Miyagi, what he found in the past of the box that he was going on into, and just diving into that box and not necessarily taking us too far away from what we got in California, everything that was going on back there. We still get to see those characters occasionally, but of course the main focus that still drives the story forward and doesn't lose focus on what's going on back on at home, looking at Johnny's baby that just arrived on the way. So how we build upon those relationships, the characters as well, it's quick-tempered and manages to give us some disaligned episodes that have different lengths, but still feels like they're fitting to the nature of how you're telling the story, how they're dividing along, and making you understand why this can be up to 15 episodes. Even with each new character, they have their own gimmick. It's the same flavor of cheese that you've been gotten in the other season. It's not totally ultra realistic. It's high school drama. There's other things that goes about the way that, yes, there's stakes to be had with the fights because you're engaged with the characters that are all going about. The dialogue can be cheesy, it's corny at times, but that's what you're used to. So if you're here still at this point watching season 6, it's for a good reason of you enjoying the show, to which I am still hooked on just as much, being able to watch these 5 episodes with a breeze and still being able to enjoy the good time, even with certain qualms I have here and there. There's still something that just gets you hooked onto the dialogue, the fights that are electric with the way that it all comes about, and still being able to build upon the new characters from Korea, from all these other different countries, and getting to understand their motives, as well as just being able to sort of get engaged with where the fight may be going, even if it maybe end up predictable by the very end. You can't necessarily catch on to a specific winner that will end up taking all, as well as the idea that what we're building up to with how this part 2 ends, it's just quite insane with what all goes out. All hell breaks loose with the nature of their fights that just takes a divergent turn and becoming something extra special to the nature of where I would have expected the story to ultimately go. And into mixed elements, it should go without saying that if you haven't been enjoying much of what Netflix has been doing with the dialogue, with the comedy, this is still not necessarily a season or a show for you. You can easily avoid it. There's something about the corniness that still works for me and still has a wide fan base, but it's not gonna work for everyone perfectly for the nature of how that flows on, the high school drama that's all acting out. There are certain things where it uses twists quite often throughout the season. It doesn't totally divert your attention from what all is going on, but there are certain things where it hides pieces of elements, pieces of the story, and then suddenly reveals it later on. So if you feel cheated on by certain twists that go about like that, then certain things may turn you off from what all is going on for the nature of what this story is all asking for you. And so just how that builds on throughout, certain characters may feel like they're similar to what we gotten before, going about certain arcs or other elements that just don't feel as unique or electric to the energy. And if you wanted to understand more of the stakes going on with all these other fights, well, every character, even though it's a world tournament, you can't necessarily build up all the other teams as super tough, super dominating, and then put them into fights against Miyagi-Do and expect Miyagi-Do to be super weak against them in comparison, despite what they trained them up to be, because for the purpose of the show, they have to lead on Miyagi-Do and lead on Cobra Kai to be extra tough in order to, even though in comparison to the training, it may look like there's unfair competition, obviously there's a lead on to make you cheer for the main characters, even if it isn't quite necessarily the match you in face value see as working exactly. So obviously they're going to make the protagonist and even Cobra Kai go on to the finale, but that's not necessarily always going to work for everyone because of the way it sort of cheats the system by the face value appearance of their competition. That takes it right into the negatives, to which there's certain character arcs that just feel way too similar. Certain things with Johnny, Daniel, things we faced before with their conflict with each other, and certain other characters that are going through the same revelation. And yes, there are real life stories that you just go about repeating yourself, going through your own arc and have to go about a same revelation again. But for the inflation of this show, what it's all covering, you don't necessarily want to fully experience that again. And it can be frustrating in some sort of experience, despite being really energetic to what I love out of characters, what I love out of the show, how it's flowing on throughout. It makes it end up being one of the weaker shows or seasons of the show. In one sense, while there are some of the biggest moments, it can also have some of the most frustrating things, not only because the frustrating character arcs that I wasn't as much of a fan of in the previous seasons, but the fact that we have to go through certain things again. They can't find necessarily new material to really spice something up with everything that's going on. Obviously, there's meant to be conflict that really builds on you to the edge of your seat, but you ultimately know they're going to go to the finale. So it feels like there's something that feels like they're running out of energy, running out of the right material to really change the course of things, to really take a turn. Even as they're building the stakes, you're understanding what's all going on. I'm still feeling the tension that's building up, even if I know which teams are going to the finale. but that also doesn't keep it from being tense in that situation. But that still leaves up the frustrating parts of the season as well. So that's just my personal thoughts on Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 2, which I have to rate this season as simply 6.5 out of 10. Let me know all your thoughts on Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 2. Do you like this season so far, or is it just being repetitive in the nature of what it's all asking? Make sure to like this video if you enjoy it, subscribe if you haven't already to join in the film culture community where we're talking about a lot of cinema as a whole. So that's just all. Make sure to do yourself a favor and go watch a movie.